Hello, welcome to a live Abundant Living Session 5A, Quality Carbs. Today we're going to continue talking about carbs. Since carbs are probably the biggest of the four food groups, there's a lot to talk about. Today we're going to focus on which kinds of carb foods are the best choices and why. So remember that in Session 3 we talked about nutrient density. We learned that vegetables are really low in calorie density and high in nutrient density. And because of that, they're the best kind of food to feed your body. However, you can't live on vegetables alone. At least you probably wouldn't want to. In addition to vegetables, we want to complete our plate with carbs and protein in order to have a balanced meal. Carbs and proteins can be more or less nutrient dense. It's best to pick the most nutrient-dense carbs and proteins. Today we're going to talk about nutrient density of carbs. A general rule we can use to figure out what are the most nutrient-dense choices among any kind of food is to go with the most natural foods or the least processed foods. The most processed foods have tons of calories and very few nutrients. In contrast, the least processed food has the most nutrients. Not all natural foods are low calorie, but natural foods are always healthier than processed foods. Whereas vegetables have very few calories and no sugar, all carb foods have some calories and sugar. The carbs that are lower in calories and sugar and more nutrient dense are the better choices. As you see in this figure, we're dividing carbs into four basic types. Natural foods, which are fruit, starchy vegetables, milk, and yogurt, whole grains, refined grains, and junk food or special occasion food. The most healthy carbs you can eat are what we're calling the natural carbs. The natural carbs are the starchy vegetables, including potatoes, corn, peas, and dried beans like black-eyed peas, milk and yogurt, and fruit. These are God's food. They're pretty much eaten the way that God made them. Fruit can be eaten directly from the tree or vine, in the case of berries. Vegetables are taken from the plant or earth, cooked and eaten. And milk is also natural. It is just cleaned and then you can drink it. Yogurt is just milk with some good bacteria added to it. So the natural carbs are the most healthy types of carbs you can choose. They're grown naturally on the earth and eaten the way that God created them. The next category of carbs consists of starches and breads, like rice, noodles, macaroni, spaghetti, grits, bagels, biscuits, cornbread, crackers, and tortillas. Starches and breads are made from grains which grow from the earth. In their most natural form, grains have lots of nutrients. The reason breads and starches are in a less healthy category of carbs than starchy vegetables, fruits, and milk is that overall, breads and starches are more processed. For example, the healthiest carbs are the foods you can eat almost straight from nature. You don't really have to do much to them. In contrast, starches and breads do need to be processed in order to eat them. For example, you can't pick a stalk of wheat and eat it the same way you would an ear of corn. Remember that we're distinguishing among carbs on the basis of their level of processing. Breads and starches are all more processed than fruits, vegetables, and milk, but breads and starches can be processed to different degrees. There are whole grain starches in breads, and there are refined starches in breads. Whole grain versions of rice, pasta, and bread are less processed than their refined versions, and because they are less processed, they have more nutrients. Let's talk about how this works. A whole grain straight from the wheat stalk consists of three parts: First, there's the germ on the inside of the seed. This is the food for the seed to help it grow. The germ provides nourishment for the seed and contains lots of nutrients. Next, there's the bran, which protects the seed. The bran also contains lots of nutrients. Finally, there's the starch, which provides the energy for the seed to grow. This consists mainly of carbohydrate and very little nutrients. When a grain is refined, say to make white flour or white rice, both the germ and the bran are removed. Basically, this means that refining grains removes the majority of their nutrients. Let's talk about how grains are refined in a little bit more detail. First, we start with a whole grain or kernel of wheat or rice, which comes directly from the plant. The kernels are collected. Next, the natural nutrients are removed from the grain in order to create refined grain that is just pure carbohydrates without nutrients. Then, these refined grains are bleached in order to improve the appearance and texture and enriched by adding a few isolated B vitamins and iron in an attempt to replace the nutrients that have been removed. The final product is a nutrient-deficient consumer good that has the ability to sit on a store shelf for an extended period of time. The refinement process benefits food companies because refined grains last much longer on the shelves of the store. Whereas brown rice lasts for 6 to 8 months on the shelf, white rice can last up to 5 years. Of course, a longer shelf life is more convenient for us too. But think about it, these foods last longer because they're essentially dead foods. So foods made with whole grains are the second healthiest kind of carbs you can eat. All of the nutrients and fiber that are removed from white pasta and rice during processing are still present in the whole grains, which are much healthier and closer to the way God made them. Since some nutrients are added back to some white flour after bleaching and refining, foods with white flour have some nutrients. However, they are manufactured nutrients. It was necessary to add them back because people got so sick eating refined foods that nutrients had to be added back. The final category of carbs is junk food, or what we can call special occasion foods. These foods often taste good but have almost zero nutrients and consist mostly of fat, sugar, salt, and/or industrial chemicals. That is, they are high calorie and are made up of unnatural substances. Processing of foods always includes adding more sugar, salt, or fat, and usually all three. Processed food is made up of synthetic chemicals, chemicals that are not natural but are made in labs. Many of these chemicals are petroleum-based, like plastic and gasoline. This industrial process destroys nutrients. There may be some nutrients in food when it starts the manufacturing process, but after all the chemicals are added and the shape and color of the food is changed, the nutrients are dead. Processed food is dead food, and it can damage your health if eaten regularly. If your body is used to eating natural foods, when you eat lots of processed food, you'll feel tired. Your body has to work hard to remove the toxins that are in processed food, and you can get tired and cranky and ultimately sick as your body works to clean itself. In contrast, if you get used to eating more natural foods, including vegetables, fruits, and whole grains, you will surely feel more alive. In sum, we need to eat some carbohydrates because they provide our bodies with energy. Carbohydrate foods vary quite a bit in their nutrient density. Try to choose less processed carb foods as much as possible. The more natural foods you eat, the more nutrients your body will get and the more healthy and alive you will feel.